I am here today with Kate Porter. She is the co-executive director at the Las Vegas Natural History Museum. How you doing today, Kate?
Doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. I'm excited to have you here. So, Kate, I think to kick the show off today, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of jump into to the museum.
Sure. So, as you said, I am co-executive director of the Las Vegas Natural History Museum. I've been with the museum for about 4 years now, lived in Las Vegas for about 4 years, and I really love what I do. We were kind of talking earlier about the job satisfaction that you get, and I feel like my museum is just such a special part of this community that, yeah, I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about it today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Kate, let's dive in and talk about the museum. You and I talked a little bit earlier, and it sounds like the museum is a really unique and kind of interesting place, especially in the space that you're in right now. You mind telling us a little bit about it?
Of course. So yeah, our museum was founded by a group of volunteers. Back in 1991, we opened our doors to the public, and we've remained an independent 501c3 nonprofit since, which, as I mentioned, is pretty rare in the Natural History Museum space, because most of the museums, especially the big players in the world, are state federal funded. They're very large organizations that have been around for a long time. They have really strong histories, but we really love where we're at right now, because at just over 30 years old, we're really able to be nimble and accommodate our community. And so it's become a alternate learning hub for the families of Las Vegas, a proponent for lifelong learning, a bit of a cultural hub as well, community hub. And so we've got a lot going on here, and it's something that keeps it fun every day.
Awesome. Awesome. So, when I think of natural history museums, I think of a very a stagnant environment where, you mentioned that you get a chance to be nimble and a little bit more dynamic. What kind of things are you doing there to kind of differentiate yourself in a space that's, especially like Las Vegas, where I imagine you have to do quite a bit to get any sort of attention there?
True. We are known for our flash here in Las Vegas. So we're just offering really great programming and very affordable entry prices. And so, of course, water is a huge deal here because we're in the desert. The Colorado River is drying up, and the meat is drying up. And so this coming summer, our traveling exhibition is going to be Water's Extreme Journey. And it's an interactive maze where folks get to imagine themselves as a drop of water. The littles actually have a little zip line that they can take to be the drop of water dropping down from the cloud. And you go through a water journey there. So it talks about water quality, conservation, all sorts of things like that. Right now, it's Women's History Month, National Women's History Month. And so we're focusing our programming on women in science. And for spring break in particular, we're focusing even further in on space itself. So celebrating all of those female astronauts, female scientists that are related to the space program, and getting folks closer to the science. That's one thing that we really try and do. We've got a working, paleontology, archaeology lab here where folks can go and talk to the scientists. We want to make science and learning really accessible and fun.
I love that. And I think everybody can connect to the fact, everybody who's listening to this can connect to the fact that, creating that experience, that's what really draws people in, gets people coming back, and I think regardless of what facet of hospitality you're in, building that experience and creating your brand through that experience is something that's very, necessary to everything it is that we do these days. So when I think about, your space and your facility, Kate, what, I got to imagine that, the training and development of your team is probably a big part, because, you're trying to mesh education and hospitality together. And I got to imagine there's some pretty specific stuff that goes behind that. So what does that look like for you guys?
It starts with the individual, right? We want to make sure that we get folks on board that mesh with the culture that we're creating here, which is curious, inspired, always wanting to learn something new and share what they're learning. So it starts with that sort of personality that you need to be successful as well. And then with that, yes, there is very extensive training through our education department to learn about all of the different exhibits. I mean, we've got exhibits that range from dinosaurs to ancient Egypt to African savanna plains. And what we are working to do is really immerse our guests in each of those experiences so that they want to know more, so that they're kind of surprised by something or something really sparks their curiosity. And that's when our team members are able to share a little bit more information or point out something really cool about the exhibit. And we try and make sure that everybody who's on the floor is offering not only a smile and a hello and making everything seem very comfortable and accessible, but we also want them to be very well informed to be able to share that knowledge in a fun way that doesn't bore people either.
So, one of the things is you're explaining like the how you do this. One of the things that comes to mind right now is, how are you standing out in the labor market in Las Vegas? Given that this doesn't sound like serving a table at a 3-meal restaurant in a casino. This sounds like you really have to put some effort behind this and have some passion. So what are you doing to stand out right now?
That's always the tricky part. We all know that we're facing staffing shortages and finding qualified folks to take on roles at this point. And especially too, because nonprofit and especially cultural nonprofit, we just don't have the budgets to be able to pay what, in Las Vegas, if you're a dealer at a blackjack table, you could easily pull down 6 figures. We cannot offer that. So we have to find folks that are really passionate about the mission and passionate about the work itself. When you look at arts and culture, we're looking at an industry that has about an $8.1 billion impact.
In our job markets, especially in the hospitality industry, we're not going to be the highest paying jobs out there, right? I think everybody understands that. But finding ones that connect with what it is that you're doing, I think that's a massive part of what we do here. And whether you're excited about the lab work or the prospect of education, or dealing with people, creating a journey and experience for them as they're going through your facility, as a drop of water, apparently. That sounds really cool. I think that I think it's really important as employers to remember that, it's not, you're not trying to hire everybody, right? Like you're trying to hire the people that work for you, for your business, for your facility, and for what you're trying to accomplish there. So that's really interesting. So you talk about growth. What kind of opportunities are you offering to kind of develop them as they're coming through? They made the decision to come work for you, right? Like, what are you doing to keep them there and help them grow in what they're doing?
Sure. It's funny because as you're asking that, I just keep thinking about Jim Collins. Everybody's on the bus, and sometimes you got to change up the seats on the bus a little bit to really get everybody moving in the same direction on the bus. And so once we find these individuals that think they're interested in this field, and they're, especially, I think hospitality folks can relate to this too, where folks from the outside looking in might see the flash, but not realize that there's true work happening behind the scenes to make these experiences so meaningful, cool, impactful, et cetera, et cetera. So once we find folks that understand what we're really going to be asking of them, and they're on the team, they're showing that they're dedicated, they're performing well. A lot of times when we're first doing the hiring process, we'll ask, what are your long-term goals? Where do you want to end up? What interests you most about working here? And then we try and offer opportunities, mentorship, job shadowing, training in these different roles as folks prove themselves as, maybe a tour guide or a gallery guide. Then if they're interested maybe in collections, we start to connect them with the collections department a little bit more and see if that's really where they want to continue to grow. We've got one gal in particular named Donna who came to the museum, about 10 years or so ago now, and she started just kind of working the front desk, and then she now is our taxidermy queen, if you will. She is fantastic at cleaning collection and making sure that everything is presented as beautifully as possible. She's got a great sense of aesthetic and making sure too that we're being true to whatever that artifact or specimen is. And so it's one of those things where I doubt she would have thought she would be the taxidermy queen a decade ago. But as you get exposure to these different things, life takes you in fun places.
I love it. I love it. I think it's if I'm an employer and I'm sitting out there right now, I'm starting to think to myself, have I pigeonholed people too far when they came to visit, when they start working for me for the first time, or am I really giving them an opportunity to grow where they want to versus where I need them to, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's, we want folks to develop themselves holistically because again, this is a very intrinsically motivated profession, much like hospitality. We're here because we love it. We're here because we love working with people and those experiences. And so, as folks are goal setting, or even just kind of thinking about where their interests lie, we recommend that they maybe shadow in some of those other departments and come back. And sometimes they say that is not for me. And that's okay too, and so it's really listening. We really try and make it a dialogue here for staff development because we want to find these opportunities as folks are proving themselves. But you know what? Sometimes they think they like something and they get a little taste of it more and they decide not for me and they do just want to work the front desk. And that's okay too. Then we really try and reinforce those customer service skills, see if they have any ideas for enhancing how we're meeting with customers, things like that. So really trying to keep it a two-way conversation, even if somebody's really happy, like I said, where they're at.
So now I have two questions out of this, right? So the first question I have is surrounding goal setting. So, you have somebody coming in as a front desk person, right? Or a taxidermy queen. You have somebody coming in as a front desk person or a tour guide or something. How are you having the conversations about goal setting, maybe initially, and then how do those conversations evolve as the person's there for a while?
Sure. I think for us, one of the big changes that we made in the last couple of years is we're asking people to set their own goals annually for their role, for their position, and everybody's goals. We're asking that they center at least one of them center around the museum's mission and their department. But aside from that, we kind of leave it open ended, and we want to see where their interests are. And so, as we've made this transition, we've really set a culture of goal setting and idea generating. And that's again finding those folks to come work with us. We have those conversations pretty much up front where it's like, we are rapidly evolving to meet the needs of our community, be they educational or experiential, much like hospitality. We have to always be on. I mean, we're open 363 days a year. And so it's one of those things where when we find somebody with a good work ethic, who has the interest and the passion to grow as a professional, we're like, okay, sounds great, but we're going to put it down on paper. We're going to check in mid-year. We're going to, you're going to be part of this culture of goal setting. And then we use the standard STAR technique where you have a situation, the action, the task, and so the results, and yeah. So we can use that as a basic framework. But aside from having that one mission goal, we're like, tell us where you're at. What are your goals? And sometimes it's to get a different job at the Smithsonian in 5 years or something along those lines for some of the interns. And then it's kind of like, okay, we're a Smithsonian affiliate. How can we foster that potentially?
That's great. So, I think one of the things I've always seen in practice with goal setting, right, is that it's great when you and I talk about it. It's great when you talk about it with the board or wherever your reporting structure goes. But how are you getting buy-in from the, that middle, right? The people between you and the line level? How are you getting their buy-in to drive this culture of goal setting through your organization?
Sure. That's a great question because I think it's a challenge we all face. But I do think too, because we're asking the same thing of that mid-level, we're asking them, how can your department be better? What kind of tools do you need? What are your goals for yourself as well? And so I think the fact that they have that freedom and they're seeing how impactful it can be to be connected to additional resources, additional professional mentorship, training, et cetera, et cetera. It's really creating an opportunity for them to see that they're impacting their direct reports in that way as well. So it's not perfect. We definitely have to do the follow-up reminders like everybody else does. But again, because we hate doing the job description, the satisfactory, not satisfactory, because nobody gets anything out of that. I mean, if you need the metrics, that's fine, but nobody really gets anything out of that. And especially given how unique our field is, and we've got folks with PhDs, and then we've got folks that graduated from high school and they're working the front desk, and so we're really trying to gather everyone together and hear them where they're at.
I think that's absolutely awesome, and I think that part of the reason I ask so many questions about this is I feel like a lot of people are struggling with ways to keep people engaged over time, right?
Yeah.
And so I hear a desk agent who started, with you 10 years ago ish, and is now, the taxidermy queen. I think to myself, a lot of people have to benefit from hearing tricks, right? That get you practices, best practices, how to be able to build that engagement over longer periods of time, more than just attracting people.
Yes. And we do have really good retention too, which is interesting as well, because industry-wide, I think we see, especially among frontline folks, pretty good turnover, much like hospitality. But in particular, the folks that see the value here, we have a couple of employees that have been here for 30 years, and they're still rocking their jobs in different ways because they've obviously grown,
right.
in that amount of time. But it's really, as the newcomer really on my team, it's interesting to see the dynamic, because number one, the collection and the interest level just captures people's imagination. So almost every staff member here has a favorite gallery, a favorite exhibit, a favorite educational program, something along those lines that really just hits home for them. And then to add to that, so that's really just a gift of the industry, right? That I can capitalize on. And then from there, it's again just finding ways to really support, mentor, connect to resources. Our taxidermy queen actually just got a contract with the state to do some of their taxidermy maintenance as well. And so it's one of those where, anytime we're seeing opportunities and fostering, we know that we're not, the British Museum, the Smithsonian, etc. We have a lot to offer. We strive to be the best in the West. But we're a launching point for a lot of people. And that actually gives me a lot of pride. We actually had several interns from our Richard Ditton Learning Lab, which is the working archaeology paleo lab. And we're going to try and do some social media with it this coming summer, because the interns literally were spread out across the world on different dig sites.
Wow.
South America, Europe, all sorts of different places. I think we've had most of the continents covered, somebody on a different continent. And these are all things that they were able to utilize their lab experience here, and then take that and leverage it to go there, right? And have these really interesting experiences. So we try and make sure that each of the department directors also has buy-in to supporting their folks. And our lab manager is Dr. Stephen Wolin. He's a retired professor from UNLV, and he just loves fostering the next generation of scientists. So he's actually working with several of the interns and our volunteers in that department right now to get them published so that they can co-author, which obviously we know is publish or perish. And so
Absolutely.
That is, again, with the culture that we're creating, like, check your ego at the door. We're all here moving in this one direction. And frankly, some of it's just luck too. I've been very lucky.
That's incredible. I'm like completely amazed that you've been able to build this ecosystem there. that it exists, such that it engages people to this level. I think that's absolutely awesome. And I usually wrap the show up by asking you for a piece of advice, but I'm going to have to be honest with you. I think the piece of advice is get an internship at this museum, because you're going to go all around the world and get published. I mean, I think that's what I heard here, but
Definitely.
it's a pretty good selling point there. I'm not going to lie. But in all honesty, if as people are coming to work for you, what kind of advice are you giving them as they come into the organization to be successful with your facility?
Number one, don't be afraid to ask. Ask. And this is something that I have really, with my whole career, I learned from a mentor very early on. A swift no is okay. It means you can move on, but ask. Ask the question. Ask for the idea to be heard. Ask for, just get the ask out there, but do it in such a way that it makes sense. Just going with random ideas and things like that, not helpful. Come to me with a little business plan, an executive summary, some research that you've done that backs up whatever this idea is. So yeah, it's kind of the old saying that luck is the meeting of opportunity and preparedness. Be prepared, you get lucky.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, Kate, this is a absolutely wonderful conversation. I really appreciate it. I know people are going to take a lot away from this one. If people wanted to find out more about the museum, where are they going?
Go to our website, LVNHM, like Las Vegas Natural History Museum.org. You can also find us on all the major social media platforms.
Awesome. And if somebody wants to connect with you for one of those internships, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. So if they'll reach out to just our general email, it's dino, DINO, at lvnhm.org, or visit the website. Volunteer opportunities are posted there. Jobs are posted there. I will be honest, we are pretty popular. You can see why. So
if I do say so myself.
Opportunities come up cyclically, but yeah, folks can find out more about there and about our research team. And my number one thing, start volunteering. Again, that's like how I kept my hand in it. That's how you get to know if it's something for you. It's how you can prove yourself too. So definitely fill out a volunteer application. Come join us.
Love it. Kate, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Kate.